So, yeah, I'm going to talk to you about technology. This is kind of out of place a little bit, but bear with me. It'll make sense ultimately, I'm trusting. I guess I have to do this disclosure stuff. He's already told you who I am and what I do. There's a long list of industry partners, players. None of them pay me. They pay the university. So, but this was what was expected, so basically that's what you get. So you're wondering, what the heck's a space cadet doing up here talking to a food and nutrition community? And I was wondering the same thing. Evan talked me into it. Who didn't see The Martian? Jeez. Somebody else? You did not see The Martian? So they're rare and unique in here, but if you got one take-home message from that movie, which, by the way, is probably the most scientifically accurate science fiction type movie in that genre ever, that I've ever seen in any case. And what it told us is food determines how far from Earth we can go and how long we can stay. Simple as that. So my little program has a job for a long time. It's going to be a while. We'll incrementally advance the technology of biological life support, food production, plants in space over the next couple of generations or so. And it will take that. You know, we will incrementally displace conventional physical chemical life support technology that is currently used on the space station and will be used on the next missions to the moon and even to Mars, because there's a long list of homework assignments to figure out how we can reliably grow food in all of its nutritional and psychologically appealing dietary components, and also the physical and technical infrastructure required. And all of our research is designed to reduce the mass and energy cost of food production. That's life support. And the currency of space travel is mass and energy. Some of you should appreciate and take away from here the message that you spend the money in the Canadian economy, and the more the merrier. Space exploration is potentially an economic engine for a country like Canada for the next 300 to 500 years. So bite off as big a chunk of it as you can chew. So it's a tough place. Mars, 0.6 kilopascals total pressure, most of it carbon dioxide, average temperature minus 60 or so. The pole is frozen carbon dioxide, dry ice. It is not a place that we would hasten to go. It doesn't have a molten core, it doesn't have a magnetic field. It has some serious environmental challenges to try and grow food. But so does a snowbank in Canada. We are literally just a step away. I mean, technically, the solution to growing perishable produce in a snowbank in Yellowknife is identical to doing it on the moon or Mars. The technical challenge, the solution is almost identical. So we've been working on a long range. So this is our story, contributions of plants to life support. And we do it pursuing, remember, mass and energy. Where is this thing? I'm covering it up. Mass and energy, they're not first for no reason. Mass in particular, energy. Obviously, I'm expecting somebody to give me a small nuclear generator, nuclear power system. I don't have any sensitivities in that regard, and it's basically the only way we're ever going to do it in my lifetime. So learn to live with it. But disinfection protocols, can't throw anything away when you go to space. There's no such thing as waste. You have to recycle everything. All the water, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon. You have to make it all run around the circle. It's not a trivial challenge to figure out the time constants for all these multiple components that we try to recycle. But that's just meat for a research community. So we deal with it. We'll figure that out. But we need, just think, managing to exploit and explore all the technology requirements to recycle water. just water. Nutrient solutions in a hydroponic greenhouse, for example. We can't do that yet here on Earth. We use hydroponics, we recycle it for a while, and then it goes off, it gets out of balance, and we throw it out, start again. Can't do that in space, so I must figure out how to do that. And we are currently around the world legislating agricultural jurisdictions in a wide variety of different scenarios, especially greenhouses, to recycle. You can't spill your nitrate and pesticide-ridden residues onto planet Earth. We got to fix that. So I have to fix that for the Moon and Mars. So rest on us. We'll figure it out. And then here, cultivar selection for nutritional composition. We want to standardize the profile of nutrition so that you can predictably assess and predict life support requirements for humans. You have a certain nutritional and psychologically appealing, that fits too, and growing plants. Don't forget the hort therapy aspect of this. They make you feel good, apparently. And then the long list of environment variables. Just think like a farmer. Light, CO2, temperature, humidity, nutrients, and water. Those are the 6 environment variables that dominate. You try to homogenize those. If you're a farmer, you're trying to homogenize those. And that list that Anne put up a little while ago, where she had breeding and genetics and environment and post-harvest processing, you can apply that to a wide range of, but plants in particular, breeding and genetics, obviously, you start with that. And the attributes of the food that you want to eat are, the color, the taste, the size, the shape, etc. And then you have the environment control, the production. You're doing it in the field, or you're doing it in a greenhouse, or in my case, you're doing it in a completely isolated, controlled environment. And then you have the post-harvest processing. I submit that I win. I am in the middle with the environment control, and I'll show you in a minute how I can really have my way with virtually all the rest of it. So we have to figure out the recipes of environment control that yield this conventional or predictable profile of nutritional compounds. Apply that, go to the next step, predictable profile of medicinal compounds, because we're now starting to use plants more and more and more for medicine. Actually, we're going backwards in time and culture. There are many cultures that do that already. We're just starting to hopefully wean ourselves off the pill culture of medicine and get into more herbal medicines, but nevertheless. So here's what we've done here. This is historical, really. This is 1995. That's when the SALSA program started. Nobody got that, right? You got to have an acronym in the space program. And SALSA is Aerospace Advanced Life Support Agriculture. Obviously, you choose the acronym first, and then you jam words in there that kind of sound like what you do, so we're not immune to that. But basically, we've been, so for the last quarter century, we've been developing the most sophisticated controlled environment technology in the world to address these issues of how we're going to grow plants on the Moon and Mars. Because that's as far ahead as my short life will conceive. We'll have boots on Mars while I'm still around, and most of you, but we need the technology to do it. So we build these really tightly sealed environments, jam the door shut, put plants in there, change all those environment variables, and play a tune with really high fidelity controlled environment, and simultaneously monitor photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration, so that I can follow the fate of the carbon, the oxygen, the water. That's what I need to know. That's the arithmetic I need to predict nutritional composition in this case. And we've also looked at pressure. This chamber has 1.5 square meters of food production area. We each need about 60, maybe 70, if you're real hungry, square meters of plant production area to supply all the food for your life support requirements. That gives you twice as much oxygen, twice as much fresh water, twice as much CO2 scrubbing, and you feel real good. So 60 square meters. Here's 1.5 square meters. It weighs 8 tons. because it's designed to take a reduced atmospheric pressure. We ask a simple question: how low can you take the pressure and still have plants providing all the functions of human life support? And for that, we needed a box that could take the pressure difference between a vacuum and full Earth atmosphere. And back 20 years ago, if the answer to that question had been, you got to have full Earth atmosphere, 100 kilopascals, 21 oxygen, whatever, then human space exploration, as we can currently conceive of it, is done. Because we can't do that. That's 8 tons. Remember the mass thing? We each need 60 or 70 square meters. Here's 8 tons for 1.5. The arithmetic's pretty brutal and not possible. So we needed to know, how low can you take the pressure? Can we conceive of inflatable systems, low mass inflatable systems? And indeed you can. It works out fine. Plants can handle it down to 1/10 of Earth's atmospheric pressure without feeling too much pain at all. They're extremely adaptable in their genetic complement, so we'll all live happily ever after, not a problem. So we've designed a number of different, I won't go into any details on them, we'll get into a bit of them. Here's another one of our toys. These are also hyperbaric chambers, but there's 9 of them. They're designed to look at that light recipe. They're a lot of replication, statistical reliability. The first chambers we built in '95, we only had 2 of them. You very quickly learn the limitations of statistical replication when you have n of 2. And publishers, editors give you heck for that as well. So there's 9 of these, there's 5 of the big ones. We're designing new systems all the time. We're on, I think, generation 6 or 7 now. A lot of it is commercialized with our industry partners. And we've got this fancy light here, capable of 8 times the intensity of the sun. Not because we ever use that, remember energy is the other thing, but because we want to be able to explore applications of monochromatic light at significant light levels. So each individual color, of which there are 9 in this lamp, including ultraviolet and far red that you can't see, needs to have a significant intensity so that we can play a tune with it and then combine them in economical. So those lamps get arranged on top of these cylinder chambers here, and we grow plants for brief periods and look at, once again, that reaction to the environment control recipe and how they physiologically respond. Figure out the recipe for environment control that will, and we're spinning it off into, once again, I don't have a mission to go to the moon today to grow a plant, so no mission, no money. So all of our work is serviced or paid for by industry partners who are seeking to feed on the leading edge of technologies that we develop and commercialize them in the agri-food sector here on Earth. So lighting technology, environment control recipes, production strategies for calancho, potted plant, as anybody does horticulture, a flowering plant that has a robust root zone and a compact green area. And we can create that. We can change the size, shape, color, taste, everything of a plant just by manipulating that high fidelity environment control recipe and yielding that. We've got involved in projects on both ends of this planet. We put a greenhouse in the high Arctic. This is in the Antarctic. This is there today. A bit embarrassing. This is a project in collaboration with the European Union, Horizon 2020 project, 14 institutional partners. We're the Canadian. And we did the environment control system and the nutrient delivery system for a food production system. Here's the garden end of it, and the other end of it is the office and workstation and all that stuff, where this poor bugger, Paul, was left in the Antarctic for a year. and he grew the food, that's 11 different crops, and he supplied perishable produce to supplement the menu of the crew of Neumeier 3, which is the German research station in the Antarctic. And he was there for a year, but as I said, a little embarrassing. This is a huge project, multi-million euro project. Lots of players. That's how you got to do it in the European Union. We could have done it all, I mean, easily. But you got to have 14 partners. And we forgot to budget the extraction of this thing from the Antarctic to bring it back to Bremen, Germany. I'm serious. And we learned that about a year before the end. We were, sort of parsing through the budget and then finally get to the end and, holy shit, we can't bring it back. So, so we hurry it up, and over the last year have cooked up a deal with the Neumeier 3 crew. They really like it, okay? They've gotten kind of used to fresh veggies and stuff like that on their salad. And so we cooked up a deal with them to, while we look for more money, they'll handle it. We have telemetry. I mean, from Guelph, I can access the control system of this thing here and play a tune with it and make changes and fix a lot of things. And break a few things as well from remote. But don't worry, we'll get it all back together. And it'll all be a big PR boon, and it'll be just like we planned it all along. And Paul won't have to go back. Here's one of our next to this. We have a new generation of this chamber. This is really the Cadillac. This is a really high fidelity controlled environment system. It plays a tune with light quality and quantity and CO2, temperature, humidity, all those environment variables, and very precisely, simultaneously monitors minute by minute how the plants are responding in photosynthetic gas exchange. So very powerful tool we've developed. This is a prototype. We've developed the next generation, which is now being commercialized by our industry partners. And NASA has placed an order. There's a group in Portugal and one in Germany that have placed orders, and in Australia. So it's turning into commercial success for our industry partners, and that's good for them because I use their money to leverage federal and provincial funding allocations here in Canada. Good lesson. You don't need to know that. So we play with a number of different commodities, and these are food commodities, and this is just a demonstration of strawberries. By the way, strawberries are a really high candidate, high quality, highly valued candidate crop in controlled environment agriculture. It's a real pain to grow. You need to vernalize it, so you have to give it a cold temperature treatment. You have to pollinate the damn thing, and if you don't have any bugs, oh, that's another thing. We got the pressure way down, okay, for plants. They don't mind low pressure. And this smart-ass apiculture friend of mine over coffee one day says, okay, so you're in your inflatable greenhouse on Mars, you're at reduced atmospheric pressure, how are you going to pollinate your tomatoes? So we put some bees inside one of the hyperbaric chambers and started pulling the pressure down. We got to about a third of Earth's atmospheric pressure, roughly 35 kilopascals total. And in a third of everything, so a third of the oxygen is 7. Remember, 7 is okay for plants, not so much for bees. That challenged their respiration dramatically. They almost died. That's cruelty to animals, actually. So insects in this case. But we left the pressure down and took the oxygen up, and they recovered. They did just fine. They came out of the little beehive. They were supposed to go to these colored flowers on the platform that had nectar jars in the center. They were trained. This is a trained beehive. You can train bees. And they'd come out of the hive and they'd buzz around. They couldn't fly. The physics of flight were defeated by the density of the atmosphere. A third of Earth's atmosphere, can't fly. However, they walked to work. Seriously. So we're looking at strawberries. And strawberries here, if you just change, notice there's slightly subtle different, that's not so subtle, but differences in the color of the light. That's it. I'm changing the spectral quality of the light and looking at the effect on the morphology of this plant. And there are some desirable morphologies, some not so desirable. A desirable morphology is to have the berries accessible to an automated harvesting system, right? So you don't want the berries inside the canopy. Indeed, you don't even necessarily want them above the canopy, because then when the berries form, they flop and they fall back into the middle of the canopy. So you can actually make it so that the berries flop down. And you can use the spectral quality of light to achieve that. Just an example. So here's some of the data. This is the only scientific data I'm going to show you. This is some of the data from, so I'm just measuring, and this speaks to, again, the mass and energy issues. This speaks to the light level and the photosynthetic activity, so net carbon exchange and different levels of light. 2,000 micromoles per square meter per second is full sunlight. So we're working in roughly half of full sunlight under these circumstances with a conventional full spectrum of the light qualities that we have available to us. I think 7 or 8 different colors in this case. So here's 3 different commodities: tomato, lettuce, and pepper at conventional standard 400 parts per million CO2. That's what we have. Okay, that's ambient. And at roughly 400, so a fifth of full sunlight in terms of the energy cost. All you really have to do is increase the carbon dioxide to 1,200 parts per million, which is pretty easy to do, at the same energy cost, and you double the production. So to the controlled environment farmers in the group, CO2 control, and we use it routinely in the greenhouse sector here, especially in the wintertime, because in the wintertime you're not ventilating as much, you're not, so you can afford to put a little extra CO2 in the atmosphere, get the additional productivity out of it, because light is limiting in the winter in Canada. And so you can generate desirable levels of productivity. Here's a prototype system that we put together for applications in northern Canada. This for food security. And lettuce is not food. So, however, it is a good guinea pig in the kind of research projects that we do. And so we grew these lettuce, and just literally for the heck of it, we did it under red, white, and blue light just to see what would happen. This is what happens. These lettuce plants are all identical genetically. They're an F7 selection, so they're not clones, but next best thing. So they're all the same. The red light one produced almost twice the dry biomass of either the red or of either the white or the blue. And you can see some obvious differences in the color. That's the anthocyanin, the expression. This is a variety called New Red Fire. It's kind of a fancy designer lettuce that has red and green, and you know, it's nice for celebrity chefs. And my graduate students, who are like graduate students the world over, they start fooling around with this stuff, and they say, well, let's do a blind taste test. And you'll see that actually on a version of The Nature of Things at some point. They did a blind taste test on some of the lettuce that we grew for them. And with 100% reliability, students close their eyes. That's the red one, that's the blue one, that's the white one. You could tell instantly. So there's a very profound difference in taste, especially this critter over here. So what have I done? I've changed the color of the light. Same intensity, same nutrients, same temperature, humidity, all the other stuff, everything the same. I've changed the color of the light. And in doing so, I've changed the size and shape, the color, the taste. What's color and taste? Secondary metabolites. Nutrients, nutritional composition, secondary metabolites. That's the chemistry that happens downstream after the plant grabs carbon dioxide and trades it for water. So we're deploying and exploiting this interaction in the phytopharmaceutical industry sector. We've got a lot of attention from the cannabis community in the last few years. THC and CBD, secondary metabolites. I can play a tune with them. And that particular industry sector, what they need, and they know it, is to be able to predict a standardized profile of medical compounds. Otherwise, cannabis will never see the lofty status of a conventional pharmaceutical commodity. So we can do that. And who knew that 25 years ago, when we started trying to figure out how to grow plants on the moon and Mars, that we would be servicing the cannabis industry sector. Who knew? So I'm close to the end. Put your hook away. This is a demonstration of a high-density modular production system. This is a cartoon, sort of an animation, but this exists in Toronto today. Exactly this critter exists in Toronto, and here's how it, whoops, back up here, Mikey. I think I have to, it may not work, you never know. What do you know? So, in this animation, there are 7 levels here. This is about 15 meters long and about 3 trays wide, about 3.5 meters wide. And what happens is it's on a bit of an angle. So this is at the top of the hill, and this is the bottom of the hill. And you've got a robot here that goes up and grabs the mature, in this case, romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce is worth $2 billion in the North American marketplace today. And there's 2 companies that control about 85% of that market. Very powerful. Who knew? Lettuce. So the mature ones come out at the end, and then they're displaced by gravity, and then the robot at the other end loads the seeding group in. And you can have a whole bunch of different commodities, basil, arugula is another one they use. And the company that's doing this is a little company called We the Roots. And they have this all set up in an industrial warehouse down in the east end of Toronto. And they have sold everything they can grow, regardless of what it is, for the next 2.5 years. It's sold sight unseen, just gimme. And it's mostly to celebrity chefs, Canoe, and a few other high-end restaurants in downtown Toronto. They've literally, it's just a little garden plot, so it's not that big. But in any case, this is the pilot of that system we did for the north, and here it is in the industrial warehouse in downtown Toronto. It sort of looks like this. And the final slide, yes, the final slide. Here's where it's headed. Exactly that automation with the robots in each end. You can see them all here. This is, I think, 16 or 18 levels. This is under construction in St. Catherine, actually Welland, right? This year. This will be manufactured this year, and our industry partners are all going to go off and get rich and famous selling lettuce. So this will exist probably by Christmas or early next year, and the scale, the industrial scale, is mind-boggling because they're competing with romaine lettuce in Salinas, California, right? And I've been to Salinas, California. You can stand there and look, 360 and see romaine lettuce to the horizon as far as you can see. It's remarkable. So it's an enormous market, and addressing it in high-intensity modular production systems is a piece of the future of food security. And putting it into harsh climates on the planet like Canadian North, us taxpayers down here, those of you who are paying taxes here in southern Canada, I don't know what the number is. I suppose it's close to $130 million a year that we devote to air freighting fresh produce from Mexico to our cousins in the north. That's got to stop. We have the technology. It's actually economically feasible based on our Ag North study that we did a few years ago in the Northwest Territories. It is economically feasible to grow perishable produce in a snowbank in Yellowknife rather than ship it from Mexico. So I have to feel that there is some political something that's holding us back from exploiting our own technology in our own country to create our own economy rather than servicing that of our good friends in Mexico. Nevertheless, that's all I have for you. Thank you very much.